She arrived early for work, just like always. Her car was found parked outside, her belongings untouched, her life seemingly paused mid-sentence. But what officers discovered on surveillance, and later at a quiet, isolated pond, was something far more disturbing than a simple disappearance. Because this wasn't just a missing person case, it was a crime scene so chilling, it left even seasoned investigators shaken.
This marshy area right here behind me where a JSO dive team found her body.
Savannah Gold was only 21 years old, living a life defined by responsibility, sacrifice, and quiet strength. Every day, she balanced long shifts at a seafood restaurant with caring for her terminally ill mother. It wasn't the life she had planned, but it was the one she chose, putting her dreams on hold for the person who needed her most. On the evening of August 1st, 2017, Savannah left her home wearing her work uniform, just like any other shift. The restaurant was only 10 minutes away. It was a routine she had followed countless times before. Nothing about that night seemed unusual, but Savannah never made it inside. When she failed to show up for her shift, her manager became concerned. Savannah was known for her reliability, always early, always prepared. An hour passed with no sign of her. That's when her family received a message from her phone. It claimed she had met an amazing man and decided to leave her life behind. But something felt wrong. The message was rushed. The wording was strange. It didn't sound like her at all. And more importantly, it didn't match the actions of someone who had just sacrificed her future to care for her dying mother. Her family knew immediately something wasn't right. They rushed to the restaurant parking lot, and what they found only deepened the mystery. Savannah's car was there, parked just steps away from where she worked. Inside were her wallet, her money, her ID, everything except her phone. And then there was the tire. One of them had been deliberately punctured. This wasn't a random disappearance. This was something else. When police were first contacted, the response was slow. Officers initially suggested there was no immediate evidence of foul play. They advised waiting before launching a full investigation. But for Savannah's family, every second mattered. They knew she wouldn't just vanish. As hours turned into a full day, the pressure began to build. Surveillance footage from the parking lot showed Savannah arriving early, nearly 30 minutes before her shift. Her car pulled in, parked, and then nothing. At least, that's what it seemed at first. But as investigators expanded their search, reviewing footage from nearby cameras with wider angles, the case took a sudden and disturbing turn. The new footage showed Savannah stepping out of her car and approaching someone. Moments later, she was seen getting into a vehicle, a silver Chevrolet Malibu. That alone was alarming. But what came next was far worse. Additional footage, later revealed in court records, showed signs of a struggle. The man inside the vehicle appeared to be fighting with Savannah. The car itself began shaking violently, indicating something intense, and likely violent, was happening inside. Then the man stepped out. He walked over to Savannah's car and punctured her tire. It was no accident, no coincidence. It was intentional, designed to keep her car from moving, to delay discovery, to control the scene. He then returned to his vehicle and drove away. Savannah was never seen again. For investigators, the situation was now clear. This was not a disappearance. It was an abduction, and possibly already a homicide. The next step was identifying the man in the Malibu, and that's when the case took an even darker turn, because that same vehicle was found parked outside the restaurant. As if nothing had happened, the car belonged to one of the restaurant's managers, a man named Leandra Rodart. When initially questioned, he claimed he hadn't seen Savannah that day. He said he wasn't even working, but the footage told a different story. Investigators began digging into his background. On the surface, nothing stood out. No criminal record, no obvious red flags. But deeper investigation revealed a secret relationship between him and Savannah. It was something they had kept hidden. He had a girlfriend, and workplace rules prohibited relationships between management and staff. But now, that secret connection made him the prime suspect. On the third day of the investigation, Rodart was brought in for questioning. At first, he appeared calm, cooperative. He spoke about Savannah casually, describing their past relationship and how they had grown apart.
We started hanging out outside of work, and at the time I had a girlfriend. We kind of connected, me and Savannah. So we hung out a little bit here and there, got pretty close. We come from somewhat similar, so we kind of connected and hung out for a little while, period of 2-3 months.
Okay.
He painted a picture of distance, claiming they hadn't seen each other in weeks. But then, his story began to change. He admitted he had lied. He said he had seen Savannah that day, that they had met in the parking lot to talk. According to him, it was a simple conversation, one where he confronted her about rumors she had been spreading. He claimed she got into his car willingly, that they talked, and then she left.
I didn't tell you the truth when we talked at Bonefish.
Okay.
Last time I saw her was Wednesday afternoon. I heard that she basically telling a lot of people at work that we hooked up a bunch, like I was her boyfriend and this and that. I met her in the parking lot at Bonefish. I parked and I said, hey, can I talk to you for a second? She asked me, she said, can I come sit in the car?
He even admitted to puncturing her tire, but insisted it was just a warning, a way to scare her into staying quiet. But investigators already knew the truth. They had seen the footage. They knew she never got out of that car. As the interrogation continued, cracks began to form in his story. His timeline didn't make sense. His explanations became inconsistent. And then, there were the scratches. Visible marks on his body. Fresh, unmistakable. When asked about them, he gave a weak explanation. Said they were self-inflicted. Said they were old. But the investigators could see it clearly. These injuries were recent. They matched the signs of a struggle. The pressure intensified. Detectives shifted tactics, moving between confrontation and empathy. They reminded him of Savannah's family, of her mother waiting for answers, of the possibility, however small, that she might still be alive. But he kept denying it, until finally, he slipped. Maybe something got out of hand in the car, he said. That was the moment everything changed. Investigators leaned in, pressed harder. They told him what they already knew, that Savannah never left his vehicle. And slowly, the truth began to surface. He admitted it. There had been a fight. She resisted. She fought back. She tried to defend herself. And in that moment, he made a decision. He grabbed her, and he didn't let go. He confessed to strangling her inside the car, just minutes after she had arrived for work, just steps away from safety. But even then, it wasn't over, because what he did next would leave investigators deeply disturbed. He drove her body across the city to a secluded pond, and there, he attempted to destroy the evidence. When officers arrived at the location he described, they began searching the water. What they found was devastating. Savannah's remains had been burned, so severely that determining the exact cause of death became nearly impossible. It was a level of brutality that shocked even experienced investigators. Despite the damage, one detail stood out. There were no drugs found in her system. This directly contradicted Rodart's earlier claims, his attempts to portray her as unstable, to shift blame, to rewrite the narrative. The truth was clear. Savannah had been attacked, overpowered, and killed, and then discarded. The case quickly moved forward. Rodart was arrested and charged with second-degree murder, along with tampering with evidence. Despite his confession, he later attempted to claim self-defense in court, but the evidence was overwhelming. The surveillance footage, the physical injuries, the inconsistencies in his story, and ultimately, his own words. He accepted a plea deal, 40 years in prison, for a crime that lasted minutes, but destroyed lives forever. For Savannah's family, the pain didn't end with the conviction. Her mother, who Savannah had sacrificed everything for, continued her battle with cancer. In 2024, she passed away, never fully recovering from the loss of her daughter. A family already fighting one tragedy, forced to endure another. And at the center of it all was a single, horrifying moment in a parking lot, a moment captured on camera, a moment where everything changed. Savannah Gold walked into that parking lot expecting another ordinary shift. She never made it inside. And what officers eventually uncovered, from that violent struggle to the haunting discovery at the pond, was a crime scene that would stay with them long after the case was closed. Because some cases aren't just about solving a crime. They're about confronting the reality of how quickly a life can be taken, and how much can be lost in a single, irreversible decision.